Hi, it's Vaughan at Westcote Bell Pottery .ca in Nova Scotia, Canada. I have been sent a couple of tools by Vevor. One is a grinder, and I've been asked many times to do a videos just on grinding. And I've included it in other videos, but this one will be just for grinding, and grinding as well with pebbles, because they also sent me a stone polisher, which I thought might be useful, but I'm not sure. I don't use one in my studio yet, but I did gather up some pebbles from the beach the other day, as I showed. So it might be useful. So I thought, well, I'll show that one too. And it all looks very impressive. All the parts I've just unbagged, lay them out in little piles so I don't mix them up. Give you a spare sanding belt there as well, and a pair of gloves. I don't wear gloves usually when I'm doing this kind of work, but they're there. So I'm just going to read the manual now, so go get yourself a cup of coffee. Okay, all the parts are here, so nothing's missing. I just have to attach everything to this device now. There's two big different guards. Mostly it's about protection, but they're guards. First impression is it looks solid. It looks like a nice piece of equipment. But before I turn it on, I'm going to attach everything that they tell you to. And I read the safety instructions, which is just normal for everything electrical that you buy these days. But anyway, I'll start doing all that, and we'll turn it on. Okay. I think it's all in good shape now. It took about half an hour to put all the stuff on. There's a little eye protection thing here, and that just sort of slots on and off there. There's a little screw there. I can tighten it up and make it a bit stiffer if I want to, but so then it would actually hold in a certain position. But it goes all the way down to there. But if this is there for pottery, if you're doing a chisel, sharpening a chisel, fine. But if you're actually grinding a piece of pottery, this gets in the way. So I'm not sure how that will be useful for us in pottery, because you need to have access to get your piece of pottery in there. There's another protection guide over here, or the sanding belt, and there's a tray here I assume that's to gather sawdust. And if you want to, there's a little bag attachment on the back where you can put a canvas bag, I assume, that would actually gather all of the actual sawdust, so it doesn't spurt out and make a mess over there. So that's nice. There's a coolant tray here if you're sharpening metal objects like tools. You dip them in water because you don't want them to get hot, otherwise they get softer. The metal gets soft if it gets hot, and you have to, and I think it's called annealing, where you're pushing into cold water very quickly, and that makes the metal harder. So you shouldn't let them get yellow, red, orange hot on here anyway. But the only tools I needed was a screwdriver, a tiny little spanner, can't tell what size it is, but there were some nuts there that I had to tighten up with this. And then there was a couple of big nuts, and I just got an adjustable, and that was easy to use those. And that was to attach the guard here. And then they give you a little Allen wrench, and that was very useful, because most of the things seem to use that. In fact, by the time you buy anything today, they give you one of these. I have a whole drawer full of them, different sizes probably. But anyway, it says you should wear eye protection. I'm wearing regular glasses. But you should wear goggles. Although I've been doing this for so long, decades, and I've never had anything come up and hit me in the face. Use grinder wheel suitable for speed of grinder. So I assume that's suitable since they supplied it with it. Always use the guards, it says, so maybe I should stiffen this one up and then I can hold it up a little higher like that, and that might be useful, so I'll do that. Stiffer, so the arm actually stays where you put it and the guard stays where you put it, so you can come down, come up, and that's useful. So I needed a few little wrenches to actually do all that stuff, and it's ready to go. So first thing we do is we make sure it's safe and it's plugged in properly, got the right size. It's a grounded 3-pronged wire here, so it's all, I've checked all that, it's good. It's noisy, but I have another one behind me here I bought, and that's even noisier, so maybe that is, I'm going to turn both on so you can hear. But first of all, I have to adjust it because there's an adjusting knob there to make this belt stay on one side or the other. So let's do that while it's running. Okay, so it was easy. I adjusted it. It's now running central in there. This thing was going around like it should normally do. And I'm going to show you this King Canada one I have here. I just bought this one for my own Christmas present. So I guess noise isn't unusual for this type of piece of machinery. You might want to wear some ear protections. This one I bought because it has that flat disc here as well as this, so I can do woodwork on here, but I could also sand a little bit of pottery down in there as well. So I bought that one myself for my Christmas present to myself. So we've got this one, which was supplied via Vevor. And I've reviewed their potter's wheels before, my assistant has one, had it now for 6 months, and it's working fine after 6 months. We did a review of that earlier in the year, and I've reviewed it, was it 2 years ago, and it's still going. So that was the higher end Vevor wheel, which my assistant now has, and no problems after 2 years. Anyway, when you're grinding, you should wear a mask. And because of the pandemic, we have a slew of these out there, so you should be able to easily get yourself a decent N95, whatever, because that'll keep all the dust out. If it'll keep bacteria out and my viruses, I'm assuming it will keep dust out. And when you're grinding, there's a little light that makes it nice. You have to decide, is it worth grinding a piece? If I can make this piece faster than I can grind that off, then I may as well just make another and all that. But this is such a small area, this will take about 30-40 seconds to come off. So I can't make this piece, obviously not in 30-40 seconds. Some of these actually, that one's probably too far gone. Yeah, I think that one, you have to decide, all that grinding that I've got to do there, is it worth it? So I'm going to say, no, that's not worth it. You got garden ornament. So you've got to look at time. What is it? How much time is it going to take? Here's the one with a little bit under the handle, which often happens. That's worth it. So I'll turn the volume off this now, and while I'm grinding, because it is a little noisy. One thing I will say, this machine is great, but if they're going to redesign this, I would have two switches, one to turn this on and one to turn that on, so that you didn't have to run that when you're running that one, and that would make it a much better machine. That's my only criticism about this. It works great. But the other one I have sitting right here by King Canada is exactly the same. and that one has that funny noise which almost makes you feel like it's missing, but it's working the way it should. But anyway, this one is the one that's on the Vevor site, and it works great. It sounds really quickly. You have to lift this up to get something bigger in there. That's the only issue. You can try and position it, and it does tighten up and it will stick where you put it. But I'm going to try and do this one now. Okay, this one is now flat and ground. So this was worth doing because this is a $110 teapot. And it basically has a little couple of ground areas, so I probably will sell this as a second anyway, but I usually knock out 25% when I do seconds. So but it's actually a nice teapot, so I was worth saving this one, and that's how you do it. This grinder is pretty good. I decided to go ahead and grind this one. Where would that be? Okay, right, you can see that it's pretty flat now, and it sits flat. One thing you got to be really careful with it, I can see the glaze as I grind this, it's melting and dripping off into the grinder. There's a little gathering thing underneath it. So be careful, because it does, that's why they give you gloves, because a bit shot off and burnt me a little bit. And so you got to be careful when you're grinding, because those pieces are really hot that come off it. And make sure you do it somewhere you can see, so you don't cause a fire hazard and all that. So it works great. Okay, that's pretty smooth now. Do you want to feel it? There you go. That's what it looks like, and this is what it looked like before. That's what the little bump is I'm trying to get off. It's just a small amount. And here's one where I got it off. So, and there's also a stilt mark there from my stilts. I could knock those off with this too. A lot of time I just use sandpaper for that, but so you got to put up with a little bit of noise when you're doing this, but that took less than a minute, so I got to get rid of these. I got 2 more of these to do here, so let's just do that. Let's see if I can get the angle a bit better so you can see it. Okay, now if I take this mask off right now, there's dust all around me in this air, So when you're doing something like this in the studio, it's a good idea. I have two air filter machines going in my studio, one over where I work during the day, and then I have an old one sitting over back there that's actually from Sears, and they no longer exist in Canada. But I bought that back in the, oh gosh, in the 90s, I would think. And it's still running. It's 25 years old, it still runs. And then you just have to wash the filters out every so often. It's got a HEPA filter thing in it. So I would run that machine now for a few hours just to filter the air in the actual studio while I'm, you know, I'm going to take my mask off because I'll work over where the other filter's running. But this stuff is bad for you. So do it outside, or if you're going to do it in the studio, just wear a mask and have an air filter running while you're doing it. But it takes less than a minute to do one of these mugs. The machine is great. I mean, I think I got it off Amazon. You know, that's where I saw it first. And then I called Vevor and said I was going to do this video, so they just sent me one. And it's a nice machine. And as you can hear from the King Canada one that I have there, they're both noisy, and that's just part and parcel with the whole thing, I would guess. So I've got a little discount thing that I apply when I actually do these videos for them. So if you click on that, I guess, or copy and paste that, you'll go to their website and you can get yourself one of these. And it will, you know, if you save 5 to 10 pieces of pottery, mugs, where, you know, you paid for the machine. And that's the way I look at it with a lot of things that I buy, is how many pots and how many mugs do I have to make to pay for that. And so this obviously, you know, 5 to 10 saved pieces pays for the machine, and it'll last years. So all right, now the sanding part of it, I haven't tried out that much, but it looks like it's working fine. And they give you a spare sanding disc with this as well, so that looks like it will be very useful too. Just you know, maybe that's more useful for sanding bisque work if I ever get a sharp piece on a piece of bisque, but that would make a lot of dust. So I recommend it. You know, I've had another King Canada one that I've been using in my, in fact that's the one I've used in previous videos. That is old. That is, gosh, I've had that one 10 years, 11 years, and I use it, you know, many times, unfortunately. And I just had a whole catastrophe firing with Randy's Red because that, you know, they're not producing ghostly borate anymore. So my Randy's Red, when I mixed it up, ran too much, like everybody's saying it runs too much, and I didn't do a test. I just trusted it, and I had about half a dozen to 8 mugs maybe that just ran all the way down and stuck to the kiln shelf. So I'm not even going to try rescuing those. I just smashed them all up. But test whenever you get new materials to make sure it works for your glazes. All right, well, thanks very much.